This story, because we are talking about blasphemy here, and there's lots of different elements to it, and the Tories are warning of creeping blasphemy laws. This is after a man was fined for burning a Koran outside the Turkish embassy in London. Hamit Coskun also shouted anti-Islamic slurs. He was convicted of a public order offence, but with a religious component to it. Kemi Badenoch said it's putting Britain on the road to ruin, with Robert Jenrick calling it two-tier justice. Both of these people, of course, were in office when this stuff was still going on as well, so they've got hardly any room to talk. David Shipley, former prisoner and prison justice campaigner, now is with us, who often helps us out on these kind of stories. I mean, David, firstly, I think we can all agree we don't really want to be sending people to jail because they burnt a religious book.
I certainly don't, and I'm glad that you don't. I think most right-thinking people in this country don't. But
even the judge in this case didn't want to send him to jail, so there you go.
Oh, no, sure. I mean, I think he's fine. But I think the mere fact of it being a criminal offence to burn a religious book in public and say unpleasant things about that religion is terrifying.
Yeah. But that's where we're at, isn't it? And we were talking with Andrew Doyle, who campaigns and writes and broadcasts a lot about this sort of area of free speech, as I'm sure you're aware, David, a little earlier. And we were saying it's kind of a mission creep thing. It's not as if there's a secret file sitting there in the, you know, some department in the government where they said, right, this is how we need to respond. This is what magistrates and judges need to do. But you are sort of forgiven sometimes for wondering about that. But it just appears that, for want of a better phrase, the establishment have sort of latched on to, I don't know, sort of what people might expect or what they think is the safest option. I've no idea what it is, but I would love this judge to have said, look, you know, you were a bit of an idiot, because setting fire to something in the street is probably not a good look. It's also littering, if nothing else. That, as far as I can see, is the biggest offence, but that's another story. And maybe there was some disorder in what you did, but bringing the religious part into it is the area that I'm particularly uncomfortable with.
Yes, as am I. And I think what I suspect I detect in this is the same thing actually that animates the covering up of the grooming gangs. It's a desire to prioritise community relations, good community relations above all, and not to actually say, well, do you know what, we're a secular liberal democracy, and one of the things that happens in a secular liberal democracy is, yes, your religious beliefs can be insulted, your religious book can be burned, and that's not a crime. And also, you don't get to go and attack the person who's done it. And let's remember what's happened in this case. Hamit Coskun is, when he was doing this burning of a Koran outside the Turkish embassy, he was attacked by two men. One of them has pleaded guilty and is awaiting sentencing. The other has never been caught. And the judge who found Hamit guilty yesterday actually used the fact that he was attacked as evidence that he did stir up severe public disorder. So it's almost victim blaming him. And I think it's completely wrong here. I think Judge John McGarver has got it entirely wrong here.
And again, you know, we see these kind of stories. It does, rightly or wrongly, but, you know, I think we can all say understandably, it does sort of throw up that kind of two-tier question again. I don't normally like going there because it doesn't do well under scrutiny, that phrase, but it does take you there. It does take you into that place.
I think so. And I think if the test is, do people of that religion physically attack you when you're mocking their religion, then I would suggest that, for example, Christians or Buddhists are much less likely to respond with violence in that sort of situation. And therefore, if the test is simply the response of violence, then you are inherently favouring religions whose adherents are more violent. And that also obviously creates a huge incentive for people to respond with violence, because then they know they can get the person arrested.
Well, it did, and you know, somebody mentioned the kind of Palestinian marches that we've had over the last year or more in this country, and one wonders if that is exactly what the kind of response, the deliberate response has been, or lack of response. I know there's often subsequent arrests where police look back at footage and discover that, you know, or that person was doing something wrong, they were holding clearly an inflammatory sign or whatever. But they don't do it at the time, and I sense it's for the very reason you've just given, that there is a fear that, you know, there may well be two problems. One, you might find people who are sort of very hardcore of that faith responding there and then, but also they've got the the police have got the problem of being accused of being racist as well. So you've got all of this happening, and the kind of real victim here is justice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the basic principles of a good society is that justice should be equal, should be blind, should treat offences the same, whoever commits them. Yeah. And it doesn't seem like we have that here. And I think actually with the big protests, one of the issues is what the police don't feel supported, they don't feel able, perhaps they don't feel they have the capacity to challenge those big protests. It's obviously easy enough to arrest one man who's burning a Koran outside the Turkish embassy as a protest. Grappling with serious mobs of people threatening violence is a lot harder.
I mean, it's very difficult because we can't say too much about the other case that is still pending, and the food delivery bloke on the bike. In this case, I don't think he's ever been traced, which I would have thought he could be, but I don't think he has. But certainly, you would have to, based on what we've seen, you would imagine that somebody is going to really throw the book at someone else in this entire case.
Yeah, I think the chap who was on the delivery bike has never been caught. The other man has pleaded guilty to assaulting Hamit Coskun, but I understand that's going to come to sentencing, and for another offence that he'll be tried for next month. So I think that's still to come.
Indeed.
But yeah, the idea that the person who gets attacked violently is a criminal does seem very strange. It doesn't seem to me how a good society should operate.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. David, thank you as ever. David Shipley, former prisoner, prison justice campaigner.